Tyler, looking ahead to the TCU game, Crimson Captain, Matt over there on crimsoncaptain.com,
Hmm.
he wrote an article the other day about, some of the guys that might be looking at leaving early to the NFL. And it kind of got me thinking about that a little bit. And I'm wondering who might be, their final game in an OU uniform on Owen Field this Friday. I think Danny Stutzman and Billy Bowman really stand out as the two names that are probably the most kind of on that ledge, but there could be some other guys
Hmm.
as well. I think Tyler Guyton, I think we're starting to come to terms with that he's probably gone. He's got a first round grade pretty much everywhere you look. It's kind of crazy. I wish we could get some first round production out of him before he leaves town because I
Hmm.
don't think we've truly gotten that. But outside of those three guys, who else is top of mind for you here that could be playing their last game?
Well, I mean, obviously the first one that comes to mind is Woody Washington. When you talk about what this guy's been able to do, he's essentially been the best lockdown corner that Oklahoma's had since maybe Trey Brown, Aaron Colvin, Zach Sanchez, if you want to go back that far. So it's gonna be hard watching Woody, kind of walk off the field for the last time. And then the big one for me, and I know that there might even be some sad eyes in the crowd on Saturday once they do go through, kind of the pregame senior day festivities, and that's Drake Stoops.
But he's
There's going to
gone.
be
He's gone regardless. I'm talking about like guys that could go early.
well, if you're going to talk about guys that could go early, then yeah, you hit the nail on the head. It's Danny Stutzman, it's Billy Bowman. Those are the two bell cows that if you're Brent Venables, if you're OU's NIL collective, if you're affiliated with the OU administration in any way whatsoever, that's going to be your biggest. That's going to be one of your biggest responsibilities and jobs this upcoming off season is figuring out a way, whether it's through the NIL collective, make sure that these guys are getting paid. You figure out a way to get Billy Bowman and Danny Stutzman to come back because those are the two best players on defense. I think we can confidently say that through 11 games of the season right now. I think Stutzman might be a little bit more valuable than Billy just from the standpoint of Danny as the captain of that defense. He's responsible for getting the calls in, getting everybody lined up on time. But make no mistake about it, when you've got two of your best players, one at the linebacker position, one at the strong safety position, if Oklahoma can figure out a way to get those guys to come back going into year one of the SEC, we know that we're going to lose some guys up front in the trenches, but through the transfer portal, I think that we're going to bring in at least one, maybe two guys that can come in and help right away. Jane Jackson, David Stone, Nigel Smith. They're going to be part of the football team next year. Now, you don't want to be relying on true freshmen to be key contributors up front on the defensive line once you make it into the SEC, playing that schedule week in and week out. But if Oklahoma can convince Stutzman and Billy Bowman to come back for one more year, I think that gives you a lot of not just momentum going into next season, but it gives you a lot of I don't know if consistency is the right word, but it gives you a lot of continuity because you know that those are the two guys that can take care of the back end of this defense, but also be responsible for getting those guys in the front seven lined up and put in the right gaps where we need to go.
I want to ask you about two other guys on each side of the ball that maybe they have eligibility left. So we'll see if they return to OU for
Mm-hmm.
another season. But you talk about Billy Bowman and Danny Stutzman, two guys that have been really instrumental in the goal line stands that this defense has faced. Whether it
Mm-hmm.
be the 100-yard pick six or the goal line stand against West Virginia or Texas or even UCF, that kind of didn't count, but
Mm-hmm.
we all know that it really should have been if Jaron Canick's penalty hadn't occurred. And so you look at those different goal line stands, those two guys being huge pieces of that. I think you definitely want to pay out what you can to get both of them returning. I think we're feeling like
Mm-hmm.
Danny Stutzman probably will come back. Billy Bowman's going to be a lot tougher. I don't know
Sure.
there's going to be many safeties that are going to be higher on the draft board than he is. So
Mm-hmm.
he's going to have a really interesting decision there. But they've been great pieces of this defense here. That's really, if you look at the numbers in the red zone, OU's basically taken 25% of those drives
Mm-hmm.
away and saying you're getting
Yeah.
0 points out of those, which is really impressive from a defense that it looks so much better than what we're used to. But man, it's just the foundation. Like there's so much more to go.
And Adam, I think you make a really good point, and this is something that Brent kind of touched on a little bit in his press conference yesterday. When you look at Billy Bowman, and I think both he and Danny are playing at an All-American type level, they both better be first team All Big 12 once the awards get released a little bit later at the conclusion of next week. But something when you look at the draft evaluations and you look at the NFL draft, especially on the defensive side of the football, I should have did a little bit more research, found out what the statistic was, but at the conclusion of each NFL draft, they go down a list of players drafted on both the offense and defensive side of the football and what conference they belong to. Now, I know that Billy is playing at an All-American type level. He's going to get drafted regardless. Same goes with Danny Stutzman, but you would have to think you come back to Oklahoma for one more year. In year 3 playing under Brent Venables, you're only going to get better. You're only going to get bigger, faster, stronger, but you're able to throw a year's worth of game tape where you've got that SEC patch on your uniform, and you're able to put up some film out there and some highlights going up against the best competition week in and week out in college football. I think that could possibly do nothing but raise the draft stock for both of those guys, because as we sit here right now, are we confident in both of them being, first round, maybe even second round type picks? I don't think I am at this point in scenario, depending on how they test at the NFL Combine. But if you can convince both of these guys to come back for another year under Brent Venables, the defense should be better collectively. Recruiting is getting better. We know that they're going to make more splashes in the transfer portal. I think that obviously it's going to be tough turning down millions of dollars, but I think that Oklahoma could be aggressive with their NIL collectives and putting together some, pretty rich, some pretty full packages to be able to get these guys, fully compensated while they play in Norman for one more season.
Those guys taking away 25% of scoring opportunities at the goal line there, or in the red zone rather. You know who else is taking 25% off? It's Red and West. Gotta love that segue. I got an email from Will over at Red and West, great partners of ours here at the main line, and he let me know that everything on their website is 25% off through Christmas. Don't even need a promo code. So the hat that I'm wearing, if you're watching on YouTube, it was worn by Barry Switzer in his last game on the OU sideline. So some cool retro gear over there, some great pullovers, some polos, and not just OU. Got SMU, they've got OSU, they've got Texas Tech, they've got Virginia Tech. I think they've got Iowa in there as well. So if you know some fans, makes a great Christmas gift, or treat yourself to a nice little gift there. 25% off.
We are 34 days until Christmas, so if you need some last-minute shopping ideas, if you need some stocking stuffers, head on over to Red and West, 25% off. And also, I know the football season's winding down. Yes, that's a little bit of a sad thing, but also you look at what Oklahoma's doing on the hardcourt, both in men's and women's basketball, both getting off to a hot start. Diamond Sports is on the horizon. You need to get dressed up. You need to look the part when you're attending some of these games at the Lloyd Noble Center or at L. Dale Mitchell Park or at the newly built what is going to be for the OU softball stadium. Go out there, get fitted, make some of these purchases over at Red and West, and kind of swag up, look the part when you go out and cheer on the Sooners.
ready.
Get SEC ready by shopping at Red and West. 25% off between now and Christmas. Go stock up, make it happen.
Okay, 2 more guys on each side of the ball I want to ask you about. Jalil Farouk. Everyone's talking about him. Will he come back? To me, that seems like so crazy. Like, why would he not come back? I guess he could be like a 5th-round draft pick, but seriously, like, I don't know. I don't see it. I feel like he's a guy that needs to come back. He needs to have like 1,000 yards season. He needs to be more of a feature guy. He needs to be more dominant. He's consistent. He's good, but I don't know. Just not like too many wow things going on.
Honestly, Adam, if you would have given me a list, maybe 7 or 8 guys that Oklahoma was seriously going to be in consideration for losing next year, I really wouldn't have thought that Jalil Farouk would have been anywhere near the top of that list, just because I think going into next season, he has to come back for one more year. I know that he's had a really good season. He's put up some nice numbers, and he's had his share of impact plays throughout the season. But when you look at what Oklahoma's going to have coming back next season, and for me, it all starts with Jackson Arnold and the arm talent that he has, being able to distribute the football. If you're Jalil Farouk, why would you not want to come back for one final season, playing in the SEC, raise your draft stock even more? Dylan Gabriel has done a really nice job over the last 2 seasons distributing the football, but from everything that we've seen and from everything that we've heard with some conversations behind closed doors, Jackson Arnold's going to be able to do some things throwing the football that simply Oklahoma's offense hasn't had, maybe since going all the way back pre Jalen Hurts, even to the Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield type days. So if you're Jalil Farouk, I think that you have to, seriously consider coming back for one more season, playing in this offense. And Adam, tell me if I'm wrong here, but Drake Stoops is going to be playing his last football game in an Oklahoma uniform on Owen Field on Saturday. So if you're Jalil Farouk, does it not make sense, especially when you know that you're going to have Jaden Gibson and Nick Anderson coming back next year? To me, it seems like Jalil Farouk would be a prime candidate to slide inside into that slot position and make some of those tough competitive plays over the middle of the field because he's got the speed, he's got the build for it. Let's raise the ceiling a little bit, no pun intended. Let's get some more size out on the perimeter. I think Jalil Farouk could possibly be one hell of a guy to slide in there and fill Drake's shoes.
I don't know if he has the feel for the routes the way, I mean, nobody really does that Drake does.
That's a skill. That's hard to teach.
Yeah. So I wonder about that, but I do think that, he might be more effective there because Jaden Gibson's turning into a deep threat. Andrell Anthony's coming back. That's a deep threat. So I think that opens up a lot more for the short, medium, middle of the field game that Farouk likes to live in. So I think I agree with you there. How about another offensive guy? Andrew Rame. I don't know necessarily that like it's the NFL for him necessarily, but he has been in college for a long time. Any chance that maybe this is his last game?
I don't think so. I think he comes back for one more season. I mean, and plus there's a long enough track record with guys that have been part of Oklahoma's roster, particularly on the offensive and defensive lines, that have thought that they were ready to go to the NFL. And while I think that Andrew, if he did make the decision to forego his last remaining season at Oklahoma to go to the NFL, I think he could make a team. But when you look out there and you watch the product on the field on Sundays, do we think that Andrew Rame is in the same caliber as Creed Humphrey, who's a starting center in the NFL?
Nobody is.
No, nobody is. But you watch the games, you watch how these teams play on Sundays. I don't think that Andrew Rame is quite at that level to where it's a safe enough bet to forgo your final year of eligibility to get to the NFL. I think he should be one that comes back for next season. Let me flip it over to you, or give me your thoughts on that.
I just say quietly, I think Rame's had a really good year. He's not one that gets talked about very much
Absolutely.
Unless he's had like maybe 2 or 3 bad snaps throughout the season. Mm-hmm. But other than that, like really quiet. Nobody really complains about him anymore, which kudos to him for that.
Center, much like playing corner, if you're not getting talked about on the radio or the TV broadcast, you're probably playing pretty well. So let me flip it over to the defensive side of the football, Adam. Let me throw one more name out there at you as one that's going to have a decision to make once Oklahoma wraps up this 2023 campaign. With where Oklahoma is heading going into the SEC, where the line of scrimmage play dictates the outcome of these games more often than not, what about a guy like Dejon Terry, the transfer from Tennessee who's had a really, really good season in Oklahoma? I believe he, too, has another year of eligibility should he choose to come back to Norman. Is he one that seems like is a pretty good candidate to come back? Or do you think he's got his eyes already set on the NFL and declaring early?
I don't think his playing time's been low or anything this year, but, man, you're going to have an even bigger spotlight to shine with some of the names that he's going to lose on the interior there. So, yeah, I think I feel like he'd want to get back, play in the SEC again, have more of an opportunity to build his draft stock. Because I don't think I'd say he's probably 5th or lower draft grade at this point.
Sure.
And I think I would say the same for Trace Ford. As far as I can tell, I think he still has 1 year of eligibility. But I did want to ask you about him and also Key Lawrence, 2 guys that have transferred to OU, just like Dejon Terry, that didn't start their careers at OU, but have been in college for a little while. So any concern about either of those guys potentially? Because there's always at least one surprise, I feel like. And maybe Trace Ford and maybe Key Lawrence are guys that could grad transfer. They both play a lot, but maybe they want an even bigger role somewhere, or they feel like they're not quite a fit or not a part of the future plans. I don't know if maybe they could leave for another reason as well.
It's an interesting scenario for both of them because ultimately, they've both been in college a long time. They've played an insane number of snaps in college football throughout the course of their career, but you almost kind of get a sense of, if you're Brent Venables and you're talking to both of these guys, like, yes, there is an opportunity for you to come back, but with what Oklahoma's done on the recruiting trail each of the last 2 cycles, with what they've got coming in next season, I mean, just sticking with Trace Ford, yes, as good as he has been, but this is a time where, a guy like PJ Adebayorte should be taking those snaps away from him. A guy like R. Mason Thomas should be getting a bulk of those snaps. I don't think if you're Trace Ford coming back into next season, there's a serious situation, and throw Ethan Downs into the mix as well. If you're Trace Ford, I'm not sure coming back next year, if you're going to be in, the top 1, maybe even 2-man rotation, just simply because Oklahoma is doing a really good job of building these classes. You almost kind of get the sense that, Trace Ford and Key Lawrence is another one example where you're kind of getting recruited over with what Oklahoma and Brandon Hall specifically has done, building up the that safety room, the back end of this defense. Peyton Bowen's another guy We've talked about it all season long. I shared it on Twitter earlier on Saturday. Why 12 continues to get snaps, I just simply don't know with what Oklahoma has in the back end of that defense already. And if you can get Billy Bowman to come back for one more year, then to me, if I'm Key Lawrence, I don't see any way that you're going to the NFL. I'm sorry, dude. Like, you're a really good football player, but I think that you probably should stick around in Norman for one more year, be a role player, be a guy that can come in and make some plays, and be a good depth piece. But I don't think he's going to the NFL anytime soon.